Hello and welcome to The Rewind, where we dive into the making and legacy of various films from cult classics to award-winning masterpieces. Today's film is Goldeneye, the 17th in the James Bond series. It was released in 1995 and was the first film to star Pierce Brosnan as the infamous MI6 agent James Bond. In this movie, Goldeneye, Bond fights to prevent a rogue ex-MI6 agent named Alex Trevelyan, played by Sean Bean, from using a satellite weapon against London to cause a global financial collapse. It's a really interesting film. The making of it as well is caught in the shuffle of post-Cold War politics and lawsuits, only to rise like a phoenix and begin a new era for the James Bond franchise. And joining me today to talk about GoldenEye is Adam Watson. He's a content creator and film professional with over 20 years experience of working in film and media. You can check out his stuff over at Joe Blow, and his other places, Screen Rant you've written for Adam, lots of places, and I'll have a
Yeah,
bunch of links in the show notes for you all to check out. And Adam, thank you so much for joining me today.
yeah, you're more than welcome, Matthew. Thank you for having us.
I gotta make a confession in regards to GoldenEye. Might be a bit blasphemous, coming from such a prolific film watcher like myself. I only just recently watched this film in its
For the
entirety
first time.
for the first time. I've seen it
Yeah,
like over the years since it's come out. I've seen it in bits and pieces,
yeah,
and I know the whole film. I know like the big parts in it, the Famke Janssen's parts and the big stunts and everything. But as a whole, concise whole, sitting down and watch it from beginning to end, I only did this in the last month in preparation for this podcast here. And I got to say, I really did enjoy it very much, even though there's some bits in it might seem a bit dated. I really enjoyed the Pierce Brosnan aspect. I love Famke Janssen. I think she's terrific in it as well. Martin Campbell did a great job,
yeah,
and I really
yeah.
love this film. What about yourself, Adam? Do you remember the first time that you've seen GoldenEye? Maybe the first time it came on your radar?
Yeah. I think it would have been in the cinemas as well, in the theaters. Uh, I think when it first came out, I went to see it. Yeah. And with it being Pierce Brosnan's first Bond movie, that was like quite a big draw because um, I'm a big Bond fan. I love all the films in various ways, although a lot of them, looking back at them now, they are dated. Um,
Mm.
but that doesn't take any shine off them, I don't think. They are what they are, and they still hold up as films from that era. And GoldenEye, like yourself, I hadn't seen it properly since then. I think I'd watched it again maybe once or twice, like on I think I got the DVD of it, or checked out on TV when I was just flicking around, and then GoldenEye's on, I'll watch it because Xenia Honor Top's in it. So
Yes, of course.
um, yeah. So then I watched it again in preparation for chatting with you today over the weekend, and enjoyed it again. It is in places. It's not great in places, but it's got some great set pieces. Um, and I think Brosnan was a good Bond as well. It was a good opening film for him, I think.
The interesting thing about this movie is that the whole thing about Bond, it's kind of like the Batman character as well in movies. It seems to be generational, to specific audience. I think for myself, Pierce Brosnan was my generation's Bond. I was born in 81, so when these came out in 95, I was 14 years old. Prime movie watching, like teen years, right?
Yeah,
And so Brosnan is very much I very much see him as my Bond. But for a lot of people though, it's still Connery, it's still maybe more Daniel Craig, of course. A lot of people love
yeah.
his stuff as well. But with this film in particular, with GoldenEye, um, what's so interesting about everything about it is ushering in a new era for this kind of vintage character, right? So
Yeah,
from the stuff that I read about this is that when they've done the Timothy Dalton movies, Living Daylights and all that kind of stuff, he did sign a three-picture deal, and all intentions was he was going to do the third film. And
yeah.
there's a lot of kind of like nonsense kind of going around at that time in regards to that third film. Um, but before we get into that, what was your kind of take on the Dalton movies as Bond? I know that he does have fans. I think he's kind of like his Bond films are more kind of like almost. It's going to sound weird because Bond is a huge franchise, but his Bond films almost seem like cult films in a sort of way in regards to the Bond franchise. Because he is like people really liked what he did, the kind of seriousness to it, and some of the grittiness that some of those films had.
Yeah,
What do you
yeah.
think of Dalton as Bond?
Well, that's exactly what I like about them. I like the grittiness. Um, and I think it was actually The Living Daylights was the first Bond film I saw in cinemas.
Hmm.
Um, because before that, I'd just seen Bond on TV, old 4:3 TV or VHS. And it was the Roger Moore movies. So I kind of grew up as a young kid watching Roger Moore.
Mm.
Um, and then so when Timothy Dalton came along, it was very different. Like uh, the movies were just a lot darker. Like License to Kill, for example, with Felix getting chopped up and
Yeah,
thrown to the sharks.
yeah.
Um, it seemed quite different, and that probably didn't really work for the mainstream Bond audience, I don't think. I think people were kind of a bit shocked and they were like, wait a minute, this isn't the fluffy kind of like hello, kind of Roger Moore sort of era. And maybe that's why that third one didn't happen in the end.
So a lot of things with that third one that was meant to happen but didn't happen with Dalton. One of the big things is, of course, the whole thing with the Broccoli family, who they're the ones who like are the creative force behind Bond for a long time, especially um, the older Broccoli, Albert R. Broccoli, the father figure of it all. This was kind of like Goldeneye was his last Bond, like officially. He was kind of like more on as a consultant kind of producer kind of guy because he'll pass away in 1996, not long after this movie
Yeah,
comes out. So this is a time when his daughter Barbara Broccoli and then you got Michael G. Wilson. They're the ones who really kind of stepped up here and kind of filled that void in there. And what's really interesting is kind of like the timing of it all. So by the time those Dalton films are done, there's a couple things going on. Number one, you have just the politics of the world. Berlin Wall goes down. Cold War is won by the West. And those were like big elements in those Bond films, or everything from the 60s, Connery ones, and of course the more 80s ones as well, and even the ones
yeah,
with Dalton and such as well. So that's a big thing as well. And then the other thing is just the what's happening in the movie world in regards to action heroes. Um, Lethal Weapon with Mel Gibson, Die Hard
yeah,
with Bruce Willis.
yeah,
So you got the whole buddy comedy thing. Batman comes out in 1989. That's kind of like rumbling a bit. We're not in superhero era yet, but we're kind of that's like the
yeah.
beginnings of that kind of stuff happening as well. Then you got
But
your
those
Van
action
Dams
movies,
and your Seagulls, all those action movies, and then all of a
yeah,
sudden Bond is like in looking really like a relic. And I'm sure that if you're kind of like Barbara Broccoli, and if you're Michael G. Wilson, you're looking at the landscape and you think to yourself, we need to change with the times here, but also try at the same time try to keep it in brand as well. It's a tricky thing, I think, try to pull off the two different directions where you don't want to
mhm,
you don't want to piss off the core fan base, but at the same time you need to reach out to the younger viewers, like the 14-year-old me at the time, and try to get them to watch the film as
yeah.
well.
Yeah, I remember watching the Roger Moore movies and thinking, and all the things were there for like a young lad, like the poster "Spy Who Loved Me" had the lady with the long legs, and Bond was kind of the camera was looking through her legs at Bond with the gun,
Mm,
and but they were quite tame though. Like there was nothing in those Roger Moore films that was that risque or they weren't that violent. They were quite cuddly and quite nice.
yeah.
Um, it wasn't until the Dalton movies that it got darker. And those films you mentioned, like Die Hard, Lethal Weapon, they kind of rewrote the blueprint for action movies for the era. Um, and obviously, Die Hard's one of the greatest action movies, greatest Christmas movies, dare I say. Is it a Christmas movie? I think so. Um,
I asked this,
Arguably,
I do a Saturday conversation thing, and for a long time, I think I'm up to like episode number 30, 40 something now. But for the first like 20, 25 episodes, I asked the question, is Die Hard a Christmas movie? I say no, but the majority of people say yes. And then I asked the question,
yeah.
if Die Hard is a Christmas movie, doesn't that make Lethal Weapon a Christmas movie as well? So if Lethal Weapon is a yes, then I got to concede that Die Hard is as well. But I'm still more in the no camp. But we'll move on from that.
Yeah.
Um, Another interesting thing about this whole GoldenEye experience is there's a big lawsuit in the middle of all this. So it starts off with Metro Golden Mayer, who are they're the series distributor of what was United Artists. United Artists, they were helping distribute Bond. Then you got the Broccoli's. They have a production company called Danjak or something like that. They own the film rights. They sold so MGM was to be sold to this place called Quintex. It was a huge thing, like $1.5 billion. It was this Australian American financial service company. Quintex couldn't come up with the line of credit, like $50 million, and the deal fell apart. And so all of a sudden, they're kind of like looking around to see who's got money to buy this thing. Then you have Pathé Entertainment come in, their French studio. They move in to buy it for $1.2 million. They merge companies with MGM. And then they wanted to sell the distribution rights for a lot of stuff. The Bond people weren't happy with this because they weren't happy with the cut rates. It turns into like a huge kind of thing. This lawsuit goes for like 2, 3 years. I mean, it was like quite a long time. They want to get the movie rolling. They can't do it. There is the idea for a third film. Dalton's left in the wind because they want to do a film, but no one really owns Bond right now because they're in the middle of this
Mm.
lawsuit. It's really interesting though that these days how mergers, acquisitions, all this stuff in the movie world, it's such a big thing now. Like even right now, just talk about Netflix maybe buying Warner Brothers or Paramount being
Mm.
backed by the Saudis, maybe buying Warner Discovery. It's like all this stuff going on. It seems
Mm.
to be happening a lot. But back then, I don't really remember that much happening in regards to these big company mergers like this. And when you have a thing like Bond, I'd imagine that I don't know, like if you were back in 1990 and you had the billions of dollars, are you looking at Bond as a depreciating asset? Are you looking at something that was kind of good, or are you looking at it as kind
Yeah.
of like a money maker that could be something else? What would be your opinion on that if you were that person with all the billions buying anything regards films and Bond?
I guess you look at those classic action films that were born in the 90s, and then you'd be comparing them against where you think Bond's going to go because before, like I say, the Moore films, they're great for the time. And there were uh, movies that were kind of quintessentially 80s as well, if you like. So I'd probably be thinking about how to look at the blueprint for those action movies and work out how to actually um, make Bond a massive success again, which is what they did with Goldeneye, I think, because looking back on the movie, um, and again, I've got quite fresh eyes in it because I watched it just a couple of days ago. You can see that they threw everything but the kitchen sink at the set pieces and try to make Bond more of a well, he was quite. I mean, uh, Brosnan's very suave and sophisticated, like Bond was with Roger Moore, I think, and with Timothy Dalton as well. But then they went away from it being kind of gritty and violent from the Dalton days, and away from it's not quite as camp as the Moore films. So I think they did kind of go in the right direction with it, and obviously it was successful and went on to make a few sequels for Brosnan as well. But I guess if I was an exec at the time, I'd be looking at the blueprint for those other classic action films, and I'd be thinking, okay, how do we kind of replicate that with Bond going forwards?
Hi guys, Matt here from Matt's Movie Reviews, letting you know that the Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel has launched channel membership. This provides exclusive videos and other cool stuff as well for all channel members. It's under one tier, one price, and with that one price you get exclusive reviews. For example, I'll be going through the American Film Institute's top 100 movies. So every week I'll do a new review based on that movie list. You can get exclusive reviews based on your requests. Request a movie review and I will review it for you. You'll also get exclusive content for behind the scenes stuff as well. You also get exclusive interviews that I haven't posted yet as part of my podcast, like older interviews with Academy Award winners and other great filmmakers and actors as well, and a bunch of other cool stuff as well. I hope you can all join up, be part of this great experience I have an offer for you. Support indie content creators, support a movie critic like myself who is trying to make it through the content creator space. Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel memberships. Please join and get some great exclusive content. So to do that, they have to kind of clear deck. So they kind of say goodbye to this screenwriter named Richard Maybaum, who was He worked on pretty much every script, every Bond film at that point, with the exception of three. And then our director John Glenn, who was responsible for a lot of the last several Bond films. They say goodbye to him as well. They want to move forward, so they're looking at different directors. The list of names are really interesting of who they were thinking of. They're talking John Landis, which was kind of
Hmm.
interesting at the time. Ted
Yeah,
Kotcheff, Roger Spottiswoode, who will do Tomorrow Never Dies. They lando on Martin Campbell, which I think is really interesting because I don't know if people noticed, Martin Campbell also did Casino Royale. He came back again
yeah.
for another
10 years later,
relaunch.
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, which is really interesting. He's a director from New Zealand. I think the big thing he did at that point was the Edge of Darkness BBC series. That
Hmm.
was really big. And he will go on to direct the American adaptation with the one that starred Mel Gibson like 20 years later as well.
Hmm.
But I think it's really interesting how they kind of cleared deck. And they're like, look, if we're going to move forward, then we're going to have bring in fresh, like younger kind of faces here. It's
Hmm.
really interesting to look at these names. Like, can you imagine a James Landis Bond? I don't know. I think a John Landis Bond. I think John Landis would have more suited a Roger Moore style Bond film because he likes to bring a lot of
Yeah.
humor in his stuff. Definitely a
Yeah.
lot of car chases and such. But yeah, that would have
Yeah.
been an interesting name if it was if it was in there, wouldn't it? I mean, John Landis is a Bond director. I reckon that would have been something quite incredible.
Yeah, I'd pay to see it. Like I'd want to see a John Landis Bond film. Just I mean, then it might have worked, but yeah, I think it would have been quite humorous, wouldn't it? Like looking back on his older films, it would have definitely been more like the Roger Moore films because of the like how camp they were, and it would have been a good fit for that. But they went in the right direction with Martin Campbell, I think, because he helped to reinvent the franchise with Goldeneye, bringing in a new Bond, and then, like you say, he did the same thing with Daniel Craig 10 years later,
Mm.
um, with Casino Royale. So, so yeah, really good choice of director in the end, and obviously because they brought him back and did a great job with Casino. So, um, yeah, definitely.
So they're clearing deck. They're bringing in a new face, new director. They got new producers. Especially Barbara Broccoli, who's like the daughter of Andrew G. Broccoli here. So now they're thinking of a story. So Dalton's still on so far right now. So they've got a couple ideas. It's really interesting. They actually found what was supposedly two potential IDs for this Bond 17 with Dalton, the third movie with Dalton. One of them had to deal with robotics, so the film would be centered around a series of disasters involving out of control devices wreaking havoc on everything from a Scottish chemical plant to a Chinese atomic faculty.
Okay, yeah,
Um,
cool.
which is kind of like what we got going on with GoldenEye with like this device that used satellites in EPM and all that
Yeah,
to do its thing, kind of like that. Then there's another draft that I had, which I think could have been the John Landis style kind of movie, which was more of a comedic
yeah.
version. It's a I'm too old for this approach for Bond, where he's doing everything from insulting a bomb disposal robot to participating in a rodeo. And all the kind of lot of silly shit here. That one doesn't make it through either. To me, that sounds like a Landis one right there. If it could
Yeah,
be a Landis one there as well.
yeah.
Eventually, they do get a screenwriter on board, Michael France. So the story is going to be they're going to deal with former KGB agents and nuclear research laboratories. So while they're not dealing technically with the Soviets in regards to the Cold War stuff, the offshoot of that in that you're having all these separatists and you're having all these kind of faction groups and everything else that becomes kind of like the basis on it. It gets rewritten a whole bunch of times as well. But I do find it kind of interesting in that even though it's like post Cold War, they're still kind of going back to like the Russians again. And I guess maybe at the time in '95, I think there wasn't really going much in regards to that number one target geopolitical villain you could come point like you had the Balkans wars by then, but I think that was way too serious a thing going on there to really
Hmm.
make a movie about. So it's just interesting to me how they, even though they're not dealing with the Soviets, they still got the Russians targeted as kind of like the big villain, which looking
Yeah.
back now, 30 years since its release, is still interesting how to like if they were going to make this film now, I guess it'll still be the Russians again because they're just always in the
I was
public
thinking
eye
that watching
anyway.
the film, like, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Thinking, okay, you've got the Russians are the bad guys there. and then I think made it nowadays, you probably would still, wouldn't you? Yeah.
I mean, that general character of Colonel Urumov, who's played by Gottfried John, he could very much be like a fictional version of a young Putin, maybe trying to get like his own
Yeah,
get this helicopter and his Goldeneye device and all that. I mean, it
yeah.
in some ways it's right out of Central Casting, but in other ways it speaks to true life as well.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit now about Dalton. So
Okay. Yeah.
he is waiting. They got a director, they got an idea, but he's like, I'm happy to do another film, but they want him to sign on for more. They want to do multiple films with it.
Hmm.
And he's kind of like, no, like I'm going to do this third one and that's it. I imagine for them, they're like, okay, we want to do a fresh start. We're not going to have our first movie under this kind of like new push for Bond and have the one actor and then he's going to go and we have to go through a casting process again. So they kind of like
Yeah.
split. They go their separate ways. So now it's time for looking at casting. Um, so the interesting thing about Pierce Brosnan is that he was actually initially cast beforehand in where in Timothy Dalton role. The reason why
Yeah.
Dalton got it is because Pierce Brosnan had a huge TV show called Remington Steele. They wouldn't let him out of his contract to do Bond,
Yeah. I remember
which
reading about that near the like close to the time. Yeah.
which is really interesting. Looking back and thinking of it, so he's kind of like brought back into it. But the list of names supposedly that were out there for this is really interesting. Um,
Hmm.
Mel Gibson was one.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
he said like he's already got Lethal Weapon, so he doesn't need
That
Bond.
wouldn't make sense, I think,
Um,
would it? Yeah. Yeah.
Liam Neeson was
Uh-huh.
another Irishman. Funny enough, as was
Hmm.
as is Pierce Brosnan. Now, supposedly, Liam Neeson's wife, late wife, who was then his fiancée, Natasha Richardson, actually said to him that if he took on Bond, she wouldn't marry him. She was like dead set against him playing playing the super spy for the Imperial kind of English or whatever.
Yeah.
Because her family, her mum's like Vanessa Redgrave, so I imagine they're very kind of like what you say, very political in that kind of way.
Yeah.
Supposedly Ray Fiennes, which is interesting because he will become M, like
Yeah.
um
But looking back,
once
he could
later
have been a
on.
good Bodbury finds, to be fair. Like he's
I
got the
think so
look,
too.
he's got the suave and the charm, I think. Like he would have been a good shout as Bond.
There was even some talk about maybe rejigging it and making it a woman, and supposedly Sharon Stone's name was out there as well in regards to
Uh-huh.
this.
Is
I
that on
don't
the back
know.
of like Fatal Attraction and
Yeah,
and movies like that?
Basic Instinct and all that kind of stuff,
Sorry,
right? So
Basic
she's got
Instinct, yeah.
like
Sorry, not Fatal
she's
Attraction.
big
I'm thinking
stuff
Glenn
then, but
Close.
she's not a Brit though, or in any kind of form, not even adjacent in
Yeah.
any way. She's American, and of course being a woman as well. And supposedly, I found this article where it was kind of like a roundtable discussion, and someone actually asked if any of these names were true, especially in regards to changing the gender maybe or what have you or the race of the
Yeah.
character and they pretty much said no, that's none of that is true. We wanted Brosnan, we wanted him before, we're going to get him again.
Hmm.
So he's like, okay, I'm done with Remington Steele. And then he couldn't do Bond before, and now this thing comes back again. He's like 33 years old, and he's like, hell yeah, I'm taking this on because he said that like he remember watching Goldfinger when he was 10 years old in Ireland.
Hmm.
And just the sight of a beautiful gold lady like naked on a bed just stayed in his 10-year-old mind, and ever since then he was like a
Yeah.
Bond guy. Which is funny
It's one of the
enough,
most
like
iconic scenes, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, and funny enough, Goldfinger is the movie that made him a Bond fan, and Goldeneye would be the one to make him Bond himself. But I
Hmm.
think just when it comes to casting, I having him play Bond, I think is one of the great kind of like Bond castings there is. Because to me, I mean, and we'll talk about this soon when it comes to James Bond as actors playing him. He's in like top three for sure. I think
Hmm.
he's just absolutely fantastic in this
Yeah.
movie. What's your impressions of a 33-year-old Brosnan playing James Bond in GoldenEye?
I think it's fantastic. Yeah, like the role was made for him. He just slipped into it. And when you consider that Roger Moore was what 57
Hmm.
when he made his last, was that the last one? View to a Kill, was that his last Bond movie?
I think
Uh,
so. Yeah. Or
I
was
think
it
it was, wasn't it?
Octopussy?
Yeah,
Maybe it was View to Kill. Yeah, that's right. Yep.
yeah, I think it was. Yeah, and I'm pretty sure he
Yeah.
was 57.
Yeah.
But he still looked quite good. But Pierce Brosnan, I thought, just slipped right into the role, and that very first scene where he does the dive
Mm,
uh, was just a perfect introduction for him as the character because it's sort of like putting a stamp on the role and saying like this is me, this is who I am, um, this is me as Bond, and yeah, I thought he was absolutely fine. He's in my top five definitely. Um, I know there's only seven to choose from if you count David Niven as well.
yes, of course.
Yeah. Um, but I thought he was good. I think he was let down by the movies afterwards,
Yeah,
because his Bond movies are like diminishing returns in terms of quality.
yeah,
Goldeneye is easily the best, and then after
yeah.
that, the quality kind of dips until you get to Die Another Day, which is a bit embarrassing in places for everyone involved, really, with the CGI and how they just got ridiculous in terms of the gadgets and everything. Like I'm not sure the reasoning behind that. They're trying to go a bit too far with things. But him as Bond, though, I thought he was fantastic. Yeah,
The interesting thing about Pierce Brosnan as Bond as well is that not only does he bring youth to it, but he's also got a classic sense about him as well that you need for as a Bond guy.
yeah.
As soon as you see him in the suit in that casino scene where he's across from on a top and all that, playing
Oh, the
poker,
Baccarat table.
it's
Yeah,
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 that's when you're like, look, this is the guy for sure. I mean, you said it correctly that he seamlessly kind of slips into the role. But he
yeah,
makes it his own as well. It's not a replication of anything else that came beforehand, which I think
yeah,
which is really cool about the Bond movies is that every Bond has their own kind of distinct flavor about them.
yeah,
Um, yeah, even Dalton, like I think some people might mix up Dalton and Brosnan, but there's differences between them two as well. I thought that Dalton was much colder with his
yeah.
Bond. It was much because which had to suit kind of the grittiness, where
Hmm.
Brosnan can have that kind of grit, that coldness, but he can also be playful. He could do the quips. He could do the sensuality throughout the
Yeah,
whole series as well. And the other thing that's really interesting in what you said is that when I was looking at my favorite Bonds, I had to really put the line between who played the character best and who was in the best movies. You know, I mean,
yeah,
and I think that's really
yeah.
something that's really important because, like you said, Brosnan, I think in a lot of ways was let down in with the other films
Hmm.
because I think especially because the maybe the directors that are involved in it. Like if you look at like what Daniel Craig has. Some big name directors worked in those films. Like you have those
Yeah,
Sam Mendes films, and you have
yeah.
Mark Foster as well, and
Hmm.
heaps of people like really kind of like award-winning kind of guys. Where a lot
Hmm.
of the people who were working with Brosnan at the time, and no disrespect for them, I know that Die Another Day was directed by Lee Tamaraya, who's a New Zealand filmmaker, much like Martin
Yeah,
Campbell, passed away just recently. God bless his soul. He did Once Warriors and such, but Die Another Day wasn't a movie that in any shape or means was a good film, let alone a good Bond film. And I
yeah.
think
It's
that
one of the worst Bond films, isn't it? To be fair,
absolutely, and I
but for
think that's
various reasons.
again, it's kind of like that film is kind of like what happened with the end of the Moore thing, where like it kind of ran its course. They tapped out of ideas and it wasn't really taking things seriously, which
Yeah,
is why they had to change course there as well. But I think that if the Brosnan Bond films just had some better filmmakers behind it and it took better care of the writing and such like that in there, it could have been, a really great stretch of films. But unfortunately,
yeah.
it just wasn't there filmmaking wise.
Well, it's interesting what you say about your favorite Bond actors not necessarily being in your favorite Bond movies.
Yeah.
So, like, I'll give you a clue to who my favorite Bond is. He's in,
Well, let's get into that now. Let's give me your
yeah.
list and I'll give you mine.
Daniel Craig I think, is my favorite Bond,
Hmm.
because I think he's probably the best Bond for me, and he's in the best Bond movie for me as well, which I think is Casino Royale,
Okay.
which might be controversial, but if you look at the classics like From Russia with Love, for example, those old Sean Connery Bond movies, which some of which have dated quite badly in some aspects, but they're still terrific films in other aspects as well. But for me, I thought Daniel Craig, he was ever since he had the when he was kind of announced as Bond, and he was on the Thames in London, and he was on that speedboat, and he had kind of long blonde hair, and the press here in England like
Mm,
just tore him a new one. They absolutely tore him a new one. Um, on the fact that he didn't look that good as Bond, like because he had like kind of longish blonde hair. But then when the first footage of the film were released, and he's got kind of like short hair and he's properly buffed up and he's like a proper hard man, and like a tough Bond, then people were like, "Whoa, actually, yeah, this guy looks really good." And he's not like your quintessential good-looking Bond in the traditional sense, like Brosnan is, very kind of he's a good-looking lad, he's suave, whereas Daniel Craig has like more of character to his face. He's not like your stereotypically good-looking Bond, but he is in his
mm,
own way.
yeah.
Um, and I thought he fit the role perfectly. So I'd have Daniel Craig as my number one. Um, Two, probably Sean Connery, because I think looking back at the films he was in, more or less, I think they're some of the best Bond movies as well. Um, After Sean Connery, and this might be controversial, but I'll put Roger Moore third only because he was like my introduction to Bond.
Mhm.
So as a little nipper here in the UK, watching old Roger Moore movies like View to a Kill, Spy Who Loved Me, etc. Um, that's like my comfort watching at the time, and it was like, yeah, this is great. I don't think he's not necessarily the best Bond, but I thought he has he has like a special place in my heart as far as Bond goes. So he's third. And then I actually put Timothy Dalton in fourth ahead of Brosnan in fifth. Um, Again, because I think what I liked about Dalton was that he was different. Like you say, he was cold and calculating. And there were various other aspects of Bond's life that were kind of introduced during the Dalton era. And I thought again he fit the role really well. And I loved how he kind of paid homage to it in Hot Fuzz as well, um, which itself is almost 20 years old now,
Oh God, yeah.
just about, I think.
2007, I think it came out. Yeah,
Yeah, so it's 19 years old, isn't it now?
yeah,
Which is mad, because I worked on the marketing for that movie randomly.
yeah.
So that, yeah, it doesn't feel like 20 years ago. Um, but Brosnan, I've got him in fifth. Yeah, I thought he was a brilliant Bond, absolutely great. Like we say, he just um, fit into the role perfectly, but made it his own as well. So yeah, that's my top five. What's yours? Do you think, Matthew?
The Matt's Movie Reviews YouTube channel is brought to you by TeePublic. TeePublic is the world's largest marketplace for independent creators to sell their work on the highest quality merchandise. With over 1.2 million designs, TeePublic is sure to have something you'll love. So my number one would be Connery.
Yeah,
I do like a lot of the Connery films. I think what I really like about Connery, and it's kind of the same how I feel about some other characters, like say Christopher Reeves as Superman or Michael Keaton as Batman, in that while the films themselves, in regards to the filmmaking, um, there's certain things about it that are kind of dated in regards to, especially like, maybe sound effects or stuff like that as well. But what Connery does for the character, I think, lays the template of what Bond as a cinematic character is and was and will forever be. I think when people try to compare Bond, it always comes back to Connery. And he's such a unique acting presence. Of course, he's like a big guy and he's quite charming and like, but you got the accent and everything as well, and everything. Like if someone says do an impression of James Bond, they might do Connery. It's just something
yeah,
that kind of comes up.
yeah.
Number
Straight away.
two, and two and three kind of go back and forth depending on like which movie I saw last. So considering Goldeneye was the one I saw last, I go Brosnan number two. Like I
Mhm.
said, great portrayal, not the best movies. Very close third, but like I said, can always go back to two. Is Daniel Craig. I'm actually in agreement with you in that in regards to Casino Royale. I think might be the best Bond film. I really do.
Okay,
Um,
yeah, I think it
because
is
I
terrific.
just that parkour sequence alone. Um,
Yeah,
I remember watching that film at the cinemas, and I got a
yeah,
thing about heights. Like I'm just like I can't like even like if I'm in like a shopping center and I go up like escalator or something and I look down,
yeah,
I can't I can't do it for long. So that
yeah,
scene in particular was just that had me just like like just sweating
yeah.
bullets, biting my nails and such. And then I'll go four Dalton, and then five Moore. Because I think
Hmm.
the thing about the Moore films is that while the Moore films has my favorite Bond villain in Jaws, because I
Yeah,
always have nightmares of that creepy bastard.
yeah.
Always
I was
sounds
gonna have
kid.
Moonraker in the top five,
Yeah.
just for Jaws. I know it's not a good Bond film at all, but
But him as a
he's
character,
so
like
good,
that's just
yeah.
that's like swinging and like for the fences and getting it. Um, but I think the thing about the Moore films is that Roger Moore was great as Bond, but I think about those runs of 80s films with him in it, is that I think it pushed the silliness of the aspect to a certain degree to almost became like parody. Whereas the Connery films, I think a lot of that had to just do with like just the decade of the time, 60s, all that kind of stuff, and swingers that Mike Myers parodied so well in like the
Yeah,
in the Austin Powers films. But the Moore films, I don't know if they have the same kind of kitsch that the 60s ones did.
yeah.
And I'm not to say anything bad about his performance, but just something about those films that really, just don't really don't age as well with me as
No,
the other ones do. But not
yeah.
saying Moore was a fantastic. I mean, I think he was the longest tenured Bond as well. I think in regards to successive films, I'm not 100% on that, but I think he
Uh,
might be. Um, yeah, I think he might be. But yeah, like either way, those five guys, like it all. The thing is, like all five guys were quite good in their roles as Bond,
mhm.
and they all put a distinct favor. You can't say that about a lot of other people. Like we've talked about the Batmans, there's always going to be an out like Clooney, for example, is always going to be an outlier. Like a lot of people aren't going to
Yeah,
like that and such.
yeah.
People might say the
And
same
Affleck
thing
as
about
well. Like
Affleck, yeah, same
he's
thing.
yeah.
Yeah, but I
Yeah,
think
he's
those
probably one of
guys
the
were.
less like Batmans, isn't he? I guess off the
I
back of those recent movies.
I think so too. But yeah, that's my five anyway. I want to talk about the character of Alex Trevelyan, Double O
Yeah,
Six, the traitor to Her Majesty's Secret Service, played by
little
Sean
Sean
Bean,
Bean. Yeah.
Mr. Sean Bean. So originally, the character was supposed to be older, and they were talking to people like Anthony Hopkins, Alan Rickman as well. They
Hmm.
both turned it down. So they went to Sean Bean, and they kind of made the character younger, made it kind of like his peer kind of thing.
Yeah.
What's really interesting about Sean Bean being a villain is he was the villain in Clear and Present. Was it Patriot Games? Was it Patriot Games or Clear and Present Danger, which was a year before with Harrison Ford, the Jack Ryan films. It was actually he played like the IRA guy in that one. I think it was
Yeah. Yeah.
no, I think it was Clear and Present Danger. So the first Harrison Ford Jack Ryan movie. So he's the bad
Hmm.
guy in that as well. So he's already laid down a foundation of like playing like those kind
Yeah.
of like a character like that.
He had some
He's
form already, didn't he, from that role? Yeah.
he does. I mean, Alex Trevelyan is a little more class and a little more not as crazy as what he did with the Jack Ryan film, but
Yeah.
he's terrific in the film because a great Bond film. I think we are talking before about Jaws and a Roger Moore one. I think you really need really good antagonists for Bond to go up
Hmm.
against. And so like a lot of times when you think of the Bond films, you think about Blowfly and Jaws and what Mads Mikkelsen does in Casino Royale. That's another reason why Casino Royale was so good because Mads Mikkelsen is terrific in that film.
Oh yeah, he's
And
amazing.
then yeah, what Javier Bardem does in Skyfall, like all of these kind of guys. I think the character Alex Trevelyan was really great in the film, and I like the idea of a former agent who's kind of like almost an equal to Bond, who becomes disillusioned with what he's doing and becomes like a bad guy, and it's kind of like he's like almost like
Yeah.
Bond fighting against his opposite in certain ways. I think that's a really cool kind of idea that I had for this movie.
Yeah. And that from what I recall hadn't been done before in the Bond films, had it?
No,
Uh I don't think it had like his counterpart. It was always just Bond was the spy, 007 was the spy. I know Felix Lester was introduced as the like American counterpart in the older films like License to Kill, for example. But you never really had that counterpart to Bond himself from the British government. So and Alex Trevelyan in his accent as well, because Sean Bean's from Sheffield up here in
mm,
the UK, where he sounds like he does in Game of Thrones. You know that kind of Yorkshire accent that he used in Game of Thrones, and that's what he kind of sounds like in everyday life. But I like how he kind of they changed his accent so he sounded more like Bond as well. Yeah, he sounded a little bit more suave, but there was just little hints of that northern accent kind of coming out here and there. Um, but he played it really well. I like the whole. It probably wasn't really a twist at the time that he gets killed off, or you think he gets killed off in the first sort of 10, 15 minutes, and
That's
then
right.
only to reappear later on, with a burnt face and like, Bond, you set the explosives to go off after 3 minutes rather than six, which is why my face is burnt and I look like this.
Mm,
Um, but when he reappears later on, every scene he's in, like, he's terrific because Sean Bean is a terrific actor, to be fair.
he is. Going from Bond villains to Bond ladies, we got to talk about Famke Jensen, who I think
Yeah,
delivers one of the best. It's like it's fun. It's slash Bond henchman slash Bond ladies, right? Um,
yeah,
Xenia on the top. So the great thing about Bond films is the tradition of these kind of like these names that they have for the ladies in the movies,
yeah,
which they pretty much went away from in the Daniel Craig films. I don't really remember any kind of like punny kind of names, kind of like innuendo kind of names in there. But you had
yeah.
some great ones like of course Pussy Galore and all that kind of
Pussy
stuff. You know,
Galore, Honor Blackman, yeah.
like all
Uh-huh.
of them. So Xenia Onatop's interesting because it's not only a name; it's pretty much kind of like her her method of this of
Yeah,
killing. She's a henchman, a villain who gets off, like literally gets off on killing people, and she does
yeah,
so with her thunder fires. Like talk about thunderball,
yeah,
thunder fires here, which I
yeah,
think is just a fantastic idea because sex is such an essential part of the Bond character. He
yeah.
seduces, he's a ladies' man, he's a coxman, he's always getting the ladies
Mm.
all the time. So to the fact that he can get himself in a vulnerable position like that, something he uses kind of like as a sort of like emotional kind of collateral in a lot of ways with a lot of the
Mhm.
women he deals with, and to have that kind of turned against him by having this nutter of a this George, ex like this Georgian fighter pilot. Who of course Famke Jensen is one of the most beautiful women ever to grace kind of like the silver screen as well,
Yeah,
and
she's
to have
gorgeous.
her to oh absolutely, and to have her kind of be like a person who could kill you just by squeezing the life out of you with her thighs like mid coitus. I think this
Yeah,
is a fantastic. You can't think of a better Bond kind of henchman,
yeah,
Bond lady than that. I think.
yeah. Yeah, she was terrific. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned at the start of the video, like she's one of the main selling points of the film. And of course, Bond's always had uh, strong female characters appear in some of the films as well, like Grace Jones in A View to a Kill,
Yeah,
Thumper and Bambi in Diamonds Are Forever with Sean Connery, Pussy Galore I mentioned before. There's been a lot of kind of strong female characters, which has been superb. Um, and she's probably, I think, in terms of Bond villains and henchmen and female characters, like she's right up there with my favorite, I think, because of the reasons you mentioned, just the fact that like sex sells in a Bond movie, and
hmm
sex kills for her. Uh, she kills using sex, which is like just a really fun premise, and her performance was great because like she's so unhinged, and she does literally get off on uh, on killing people using sex, and also just like everything seems to turn her on.
yeah.
Uh,
There's
like
scenes where she's like got a machine gun and just blasting away, and like afterwards, she looks very content. She could have a
she
cigarette
looks like
after
a
those
happy
scenes.
lady. Yeah,
Yeah, very much
yeah.
so. I think so. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Amazon Prime Video. One of the best on-demand streaming services available, Amazon Prime Video features exclusive Amazon originals as well as popular movies and TV shows. Watch Amazon Prime Video anytime, anywhere.
And the
And of course
performance
we
is
got to
really good.
performance is terrific.
Mm.
We got to also talk about Judi Dench's M.
Yeah.
Supposedly inspired by Stella Remington, who became the head of MI5 in 1992. If you look at photos of Stella Remington, there's even the look of the character is very
Okay.
much replicated in what Judi Dench does
Has
in
she
the
got like
film in
cropped
regards
hair or
to
so, like shorter
cropped
hair and
hair, the
yeah.
suits as well, all that kind of
Uh-huh.
stuff is fantastic. And it's also great in that. I think what they really wanted to do with GoldenEye as well, and they talk about it a lot in the film. There's a famous line that M has in the film about Bond being a misogynistic dinosaur, blah blah blah, all that kind of stuff,
A
which was a
relic of the
lot of kind of
Cold
like,
War. Yeah.
yeah, which was a lot of the criticisms towards what people thought Bond was, especially like we'll talk
Hmm.
about at the start, like the timing and everything, and like the type of character he is. I like how they kind of they talk about it in the film, they let it out, and having M as being like Bond's superior, I think was pretty cool as well. In the film, and Judi Dench, like she went on to play M like how many times now? Like maybe
Yeah.
8 or 9 times throughout the film before Ray Fiennes
Hmm.
took over, which I thought was fantastic here. Just a
Hmm.
few things to hit on before we just talk about some other cool things. Production began 16 January 1995 and continued to the 2nd of June. They didn't use Pinewood Studios because it was a usual studio for Bond films, but they were making the film the first night in there. I don't know if you remember that film that starred Sean Connery and Richard Gere,
Yeah.
funny enough.
Yeah.
So they had to use old Rolls-Royce factory at Hertfordshire. It's like there was an aerodrome there, like an abandoned aerodrome
Hmm.
that they used there. The car used in the film, the Aston Martin, is gone. It's a BMW they used in the film. The reason they
Yeah.
had a BMW is because of product placement. Supposedly, the BMW Z3, which was the 007 model, the car, the limited edition Bond version, sold out even before the movie came out. They put
Hmm.
that thing on sale and everyone bought it because they wanted a Bond car, which is pretty cool as
Yeah.
well. And also the theme song, sung by Tina Turner. I did not know this was written by Bono and Edge, in the Edge from U2. I had no idea
I
about
hadn't
this.
realized that until I watched the film again 2 days
Yeah.
ago. And at the very beginning, it's like, yeah, theme tune by Bono and The Edge. It's like, oh wow, I thought I just assumed it was Tina Turner that had written it, but no, it was the U2 guys, which is really cool.
Supposedly
That did,
there's a demo of them working on it, and it's not very appealing at all. So
that's it. Well, she sounds great. It's a good Bond song, isn't it? And
it
that
is.
opening credit sequence as well, um, is again very stereotypically Bond, with the sort of naked ladies kind of
Mm.
writhing around dancing, but like done in a classy kind of way. Um, and that song over the top of it, and her performance, because like just the way she was able to kind of like to deliver that tune was amazing. Like it's a good Bond song. It's just a good strong Bond song, isn't it?
I think it's one of the better Bond songs for sure. And I think what
Yeah.
Tina Turner does with it is like simply fantastic. I think a lot of times, sometimes they with the choices that they make, they do well. Sometimes they miss the ball. I know with the last Bond films with the Daniel Craig ones, there was some stinkers. I remember one of them was Jack White and Alicia Keys did a song. I think that might have been for Quantum of Solace. Chris
Yeah.
Cornell, I think, did the song for Casino Royale, but I'm not 100% on that. But of course, then you got
He did, yeah.
Skyfall from it
Hmm.
with Adele, which is like one of the best Bond songs as well. Like that's a great one too. So hit and
Good
miss
song.
there. The Tina Turner one is definitely a hit though.
Yeah.
So the movie comes out 13th November 1995 in the UK, releases 17th November 1995 in the US. It's a big hit. People love it. It's a relaunches the Bond franchise. But this is really interesting thing that happens with the Bond film afterwards. And this is, I don't know if you knew about this. So in the mid 90s, France were doing nuclear testing in the South Pacific. I remember this because here in Australia, we're not that far off from and so it was like a big thing that we were concerned about here because they were launching, not doing like underwater nuclear bomb stuff, like testing stuff, like in waters not far from here, and we were all kind of like really like concerned about that. A lot of people were. One person who was incredibly concerned about it was Pierce Brosnan. He was a like a spokesman for Greenpeace. Greenpeace protested against it, and so did Pierce Brosnan. He did it publicly, which pissed off the French military because in the movie, the French military allowed the use of their helicopter and everything else in the film as well. So
Hmm.
they were going to have a big premiere. So Pierce Brosnan's like, fuck that. You guys are launching bombs, and I'm not going to take part of anything that you guys want to do with this movie. And there was even the meeting between 007 producers and the French military and French government and such to try to smooth things out.
Hmm.
And Pierce Brosnan pretty much said, unless they're going to stop doing this, I'm not going to stop anything. So there was supposed to be a huge French premiere, cancelled. They
Hmm.
cancelled the whole thing because he as the spokesman for Greenpeace and very kind of like concerned about what's going on with this nuclear testing and such, was speaking out about it. And I think it's really interesting in that if someone did something today, like imagine, for example, if, I don't know, a Marvel film's coming out, Avengers or something like that, right? And
Yeah.
imagine if Robert Downey Jr. starts speaking out about conditions in China in regards to the Uyghur or stuff like that. It
Mm.
would never happen, ever happen. Like
Hmm.
a lot of that stuff, a lot of people kind of like toe the corporate line. They might be political, but they're political in the sense of maybe like the safe avenue, like maybe like domestic politics or stuff like
Hmm.
that. But anything that could jeopardize kind of like a big premiere or
Hmm.
relations with governments or militaries that could be used in the future. It will never happen. So to see Pierce Brosnan kind of like do this as well, and later on, he was actually said in the interviews like, if I have to talk about China next and their treatment of Tibetans, I will. No one's doing that. Richard Gere did that like in the late 90s, and look where his career went, right? I think it was
Hmm.
like really ballsy of him to kind of do that. It was really cool how he stuck to his guns, and even though this big premiere was cancelled and such, he was just like, I don't care, I'm going to do this. And
Hmm.
clearly, the producers like Barbara Broccoli and everyone else had all the faith in him and backed him because he appeared in another 3 or 4 films afterwards. I think it was really a
Yeah.
big kind of cool and very ballsy of him to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. I hadn't realized that. Yeah, I can't remember that news story from the time or anything. So yeah, that's kind of new information for me. But yeah, definitely ballsy of him to do it because it would have been massive risk at the time. Um, because like you say, the studio might have been like, "Whoa, wait a minute, Mr. Brosnan. You're under contract. There might be something in this contract that had
Mm.
like something to do with how he talks to the press and the kind of things he talks about, and non-disclaimers, that kind of thing. So to like stick to his guns and go like, I believe in this, then fair play to him. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy to think as well that like a government, let alone the French government, was letting off nuclear bombs
Mm.
in like in the ocean as well. Like it's something you couldn't even fathom. But this is only like 30 years ago. I clearly remember watching news reports and looking at the footage of like, kind of like the rupture under the sea and kind of like the big bubbles kind of coming up to the air and all that kind of stuff. It was
Mm.
like it's like Jesus, this is kind of crazy. But yeah, it
Mhm.
was really cool for him to do it. The other big thing, of course, after this, I don't know if you're a big gamer or not. I'm not much of a gamer. But
Not really,
something
not
that
really. No, if I had
no,
time, I'd like to be, but
yeah, me too. But
yeah,
supposedly one of the big film to game adaptations of all time was Goldeneye 007, which was
yeah,
on Nintendo 64.
yeah.
Supposedly this is like the bomb of all kind of like, video game adaptation. Like I said, never played it, but I think with a lot of people, again, when we talk about the generational bonds, it
Hmm.
doesn't only come down to just the movies. It comes down to the thing that surrounds it. We'll talk about the
Hmm.
songs, the Tina Turner song, all that kind of stuff. But then
Yeah,
when you have stuff like maybe video game adaptations, or maybe like the Aston, the BMW car, maybe it could be a
yeah.
Rolex, maybe it could be anything. These are kind of big things. And so when video games like a Nintendo 64, which in the late 90s was kind of like one of the big consoles of the time, and they have like a thing, something like GoldenEye, that kind of entrenches what Pierce Brosnan is to a whole generation of people as like he's my
Hmm.
Bond. You know what I mean? I think
Yeah,
that's kind of like a smart play as well by the Bond people to kind of go into that market, because if there's a game, if there's a movie to be made that could be turned into a video game,
yeah.
a mission style movie, it will have to be James Bond for sure.
And it's quite rare as well to make a decent film to game adaptation. There's been examples over the years. Like I remember RoboCop
Mm.
had a really good version had a Commodore Amiga. I'm not
Mm.
sure if you had them across in Australia or not.
Don't think so.
Uh,
Maybe we did, but I'm not sure now.
Yeah, Amiga 500 and the RoboCop tie-in with the first movie, I think it was really good. But GoldenEye on the N64, I played it at the time. Had a friend who had that console, and we played it quite a bit. And you kind of yeah, it's like a lot of the scenes in the movie where it's in the Russian base and shooting bad guys, shooting the Russians. Um, and it's all first person perspective in terms of the
Mm.
game. It's one of the classic video game adaptations. Um, and I'm sure you can probably find it on an emulator somewhere now, unless you have the console still. You can probably find it online somewhere
I
to play,
think
and it's
they're
worth.
going to actually re-release it. I think they're looking to re-release it now
Uh-huh.
because of the 30th anniversary of GoldenEye and such. I want to re-release it and then have it out there
Yeah,
for.
It's a
Because I
cracking
think
game.
a lot of people like that kind of like classic kind of stuff just as much as they do kind of like the new material. But yeah, I think yeah, it's an excellent kind of marketing exercise that led to like a really kind of great game. And really,
Hmm.
like I said, it entrenched Pierce Brosnan as kind of like the Bond for a generation. He would go on to do several other films that are yeah, Tomorrow Never Dies and Die Another Day, and
Hmm.
I'm trying to think if I can think of the other ones. So Tomorrow Never Dies, Die Another
The
Day. I
world is
know
not
there's
enough.
another one. Yeah, thank you. I know there's that one as well. But I think this one, in regards to the Pierce Brosnan run, this was the best 007 that he put together,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
And there are moments in other movies like Die Another Day, like there's a lot of things not to like about, but Halle Berry was a cracking, great kind of like Bond lady in that as a
Hmm.
CIA agent. But what this movie does and still stands up. Like I just watched it recently. You watched it recently. I think it still stands up as a really kind of good film. Some of the technology stuff is
Yeah,
dated, of course. That's going to happen with any
yeah.
films that deal with computers and such. But other than that, I think Brosnan just hit it out of the park, and Martin Campbell did a fantastic job with this film.
Yeah, I think the visual effects for what they are as well are pretty good. Um, the stunts are great, like the that opening stunt with the dam and when he does the dive, like
Yeah.
is yeah, it's superb. And there's actually a more ridiculous one about 10 minutes later when he jumps off to get the
Oh,
plane that's about to
to get to
crash.
the plane,
He
crazy
dives
stuff.
down, yeah, but I mean it's absolutely ridiculous. It's like
Yeah.
it's a bit. It's like Tom Cruise would do a similar thing now in the Mission Impossible movie because he kind of catches up with the plane and somehow is going the same speed of it as the plane is and gets in the door that's open, luckily. And it's yeah,
Hmm.
but it's Bond, isn't it? And
That's exactly right. It's silly, but it's what we
yeah,
want, right? He's in there.
yeah, it's a bit
Um,
stupid, and you're like, yeah, okay, but it's Bond and he can do that, so why not?
Why
Yeah.
not? And car race scene that comes after that between the Ferrari Bond's being
Oh
W
yeah.
and Famke Jensen's Ferrari, that was pretty cool as well. They did that on that
Yeah.
mountainside as
Well
well.
shot as well,
Um,
like it looked great.
Beautiful shot. I think it's a great Bond film. I think it's one of the better Bond films as well. And
Hmm.
I was going to say, Adam Walton, thank you so very much for talking Goldeneye with me today. It's 30
You're
years
welcome.
since Goldeneye
Thank you
came
for
out, which
having me.
kind of blows my mind. 30 years actually. It kind of
Yeah.
some of these I do some of these shows and I'm like, it's been 20 years, it's been 30 years, and it kind
Yeah.
of gives me the steady reminder that of how grey my beard is. But yeah, yeah. It's a pleasure to talk to you today. Thank you so very much, and hopefully we can do it again in the future.
Yeah, anytime, mate. Yeah, just let me know.
Thank you for watching the Matt's Movie Reviews channel. Please subscribe for more reviews, podcast interviews, and exclusive content.